This is In Demand Uncut with Jim Gellertley at the cutting edge of new music.
It's brilliant to welcome back to In Demand HQ. James Dean Bradfield, how are you?
Not too bad, Chin. Nice to see you again.
An 11th Manic Street Preachers album.
Yes.
Goodness me.
Yeah, it's kind of when you go past your 10th, you know, I don't know, you kind of express it, you know, you're passing the Rubicon or wherever, you know, but kind of, it definitely feels like something changes. And why should the number 10 mean so much? I'm not quite sure, you know, but, you know, it means a lot in rugby, it means a lot in football, you know, the number 10 shirt in both sports. And the 10th album definitely means a lot when we passed it with Postcards from a Young Man. I know, you know, when we came to record our 11th, it definitely felt as if we had to go somewhere else. But the lyrics led us somewhere else. You know, Nick was giving me lyrics that were very much more reflective, very much more gentle, very much more had a sense of mortality. And I couldn't have been riffing, you know, my usual style across it all. And it drove us to make a much more kind of soulful acoustic album.
Yeah, because I think there's one track with an electric guitar on it.
I think there's a smidge of rhythm guitar on another track, which Nick played. And I play one solo on the whole record, so kind of I've been going cold turkey in terms of doing my widdly diddly dars on the guitar and stuff. And but it wasn't kind of, you know, there wasn't a kind of an intervention by Sean and Nick. You know, I didn't turn up at the studio one day and they didn't go, "You cannot play electric." It was kind of my decision because it would have been incongruous, you know, just you know, putting my kind of white Les Paul Gibson across these lyrics. It would have just been out of place.
But there's another album.
Yeah.
Coming called Futurology.
Yeah.
Next year. And that's going to be...
it's going to be a much more...
spiky rock record.
Yeah, much more of a kind of delineated, experimental, spiky, kind of... well, I suppose slightly more aggressive. Well, more aggressive, definitely.
So are these totally separate albums, or is it one batch of songs that you selected?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know or explains it, but about 8 months into the process, I think, we tried to line up all the tracks and see what the track listing was for what we'd done so far. And it looked like a mess on paper, all the tracks that we'd completed. And then just slowly before our eyes, we realized that we'd made two separate albums, you know, very distinctly. You know, there were just two separate albums. And we'd kind of almost done it by accident, really. And so I think for a moment we held our heads in our hands and we were like, oh, God, what have we done? Kind of thing. And then we just quickly warmed to the idea. Because I think there's always been a fair degree of schizophrenia in the way we work, you know, going from the Holy Bible to Everything Must Go, going from Journal for Plague Lovers to kind of Postcards from a Young Man. And so I think we've just reconciled to the idea that we're a slightly messed up band in the head. And sometimes, you know, there are two different versions of the band going on in our head. And this is our way of solving it. When we subconsciously make two separate records, we just divide them at birth and then just release them separately.
No temptation to put them together, sort of a yin and yang thing.
It would have been
like a double package.
Utter mess. It would have been, even if you would have put it as a double album, I think we don't usually take other people's reaction or the audience's reaction into consideration. I don't think we do that too much. But when we had the vague idea that we could put it as a double album, I think we decided that there's no attention span for that anymore. You know, no one cares about double albums. No one wants to review double albums. Even kind of like most cerebral of journalists just have not got the patience to review a double album. No matter what anybody thinks, it's just the truth, you know. So we decided to separate them and make them just like singular entities unto themselves. And I think that's the right decision because this album, like I said, is much more gentle. It's much more introspective. It deals with being the age we are, 44. Deals with a sense of mortality of losing people around us and there's prospect of such things happening and also losing a lot of the cultural landscape that you grew up with. Whereas the other album feels like it's much more based on the European mainland. You know, there are a couple of songs in there which kind of have titles which were born from actual kind of like, you know, Eastern Bloc language kind of thing. There's one song which is half sung in German and has a German title. You know, there's a lot of that going on in there, and I don't really know why that happened, but it just did.
Now, on this album, the single, well, actually, the title track, I've been playing the title track, which is wonderful with Richard Hawley, and Show Me the Wonder.
Yeah.
It appeared on the BBC at the weekend of the Italian Grand Prix.
It did,
They played over the montage of the highlights at the end, and it's just like, wow. this is an even better song than I thought it was.
Well,
with all these fast racing cars zooming past.
It's happened to us before, actually, because It's Not War, Just the End of Love was used on a lot of sports programs. It was used on the Grand Prix. It was used for the Ryder Cup when Europe won down in Celtic Manor in Newport. It was used on the football. We have a fine tradition of our songs being used as a backdrop for sporting events, actually. Australia, for years and years, got used for the Nationwide League Roundup goals of the week. It got used for 4 years, kind of thing. So I kind of like that. I think there are some parallels to be made between certain sporting I don't know, certain sporting mindsets and the way we work as a band, definitely. And I'm very comfortable with that. I like it.
Well, talking of which, you were over in Australia for the British and Irish Lions tour, squeezing in some gigs and checking out the rugby. What was that whole thing like?
Well, it was kind of strange stepping outside of like the Manic manifesto, if you wish, you know, because there's always been, we've always kind of loaded the dice for ourselves a lot of the time with a lot of statements and quite a lot of rules. You know, at the start we said there'd be, you know, we didn't write any trip outs, we didn't write any love songs. And so we've always kind of been stitched to this kind of like manifesto a tiny bit. And to step outside of it just by kind of following the British and Irish Lions around Australia and playing gigs to rugby fans was kind of cool, because I was playing to 3,000 rugby fans, British and Irish rugby fans in a town square in Melbourne somewhere. And it was really good. And suddenly I found myself doing, Oogie, Oogie, Oogie. Oi, 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 which is not something I thought a Manic preacher would ever do on stage. But I had no sense of shame about it, because we literally were down there to mix pleasure with pleasure. You know, we loved touring Australia, and you know, we'd all vowed to ourselves when we were really young, because we were massive rugby fans, that we'd all do a Lions tour at one point in our lives. And this was our first time, and we got to play gigs as well. And we got one of the British Lions to kind of play on stage with us too. It was cool.
I was invited to Hampden Park the other week by singer-songwriter Nina Nesbitt. She was singing Flower of Scotland before the game. Yeah. Is that something you've done or have been invited to do?
Been
Obviously not Flower of Scotland.
I've been invited to like sing the kind of Welsh national anthem before a couple of sporting events. And I've always resisted, to be honest, because I really like being a spectator, you know, when I go to see the rugby. I mean, I've been to a lot of boxing as well, and a lot of football, a lot of cricket, and I actually just like sitting next to, you know, the old guy in the stands and talking about, you know, his pigeons and stuff like that. I like, because there's enough nervous tension in wanting your team to win, you know, let alone having to think about sing before kind of like, you know, a sporting event. So I don't think I would do it, no. But how did you feel about it? Did you enjoy it?
Well, sadly, I wasn't me singing the anthem.
No, I know.
I think I would have enjoyed it more if I was singing the anthem. But to be part of Nina's experience was just, and you know, speak to her beforehand, wind her up about how she would have to sing the Belgian national anthem as well. That's probably not the sort of thing you want to be told just before you sing in front of 40,000 people. But it was just like, it was the chill down my spine. She was just doing it a cappella, and it was just it was amazing.
Is the Belgian national anthem in two languages? Was it Walloon and kind of Flemish?
I haven't a clue.
All right, gotcha.
I think it was certainly just an instrumental on the day.
Right, gotcha. Okay, I get the picture.
Now, on this record, there's 3 guest appearances.
Yeah.
We'll maybe talk about. I mentioned Richard Hawley earlier on. Let's talk about that first of all. How did that Dame Shirley Bassey had something to do with that link up?
Oh yeah, in a very kind of oblique kind of way. We met when I was playing on stage with the Bassey, kind of in London Roundhouse, because myself and Nick had written a song on her album. So she was doing a concert at the Roundhouse as part of the BBC Electric Proms. And anyway, so kind of I was there just standing around waiting to go on stage, and Richard Hawley was there too. And kind of it was, kind of got on really easily. Kind of seemed to have a couple of touchstones, like we talked about our dads a lot, who seemed to be kind of cut from the same cloth, even though there were slight differences. And we talked about our love of place and how we feel that we owe the place that we come from. We owe it a debt, kind of thing. And we bonded over whiskey. He's a good drinker. And it looks a bit strange because obviously he's a very tall chap and I'm quite diminutive. And I've kept in touch with him ever since. And I'm not friends with many musicians, I must say. but I really just naturally get on with him. So anyway, when we wrote this song, Rewind the Film, there was obviously a distinctly manly tone to the verses. You know, it was down there, and I sing quite high. And I just immediately in my head, I thought this would be amazing for Richard Hawley. You know, so I gave him a call. He said he'd just come down. He did it, and his first take was amazing. It was nearly perfect. Did 2 more takes, and then he buggered off. And it was just an absolutely thrilling experience because it was so easy. It was so easy.
It's such a great introduction to the album. It's the first track that you revealed. I mean, I suppose nowadays the music industry, the way it works, you put out a song just as if it's come from nowhere as a taster for the record. It's not like a proper single.
It's got an instant grat now, or something like that. I don't bloody know.
Yeah. So was that the obvious song to do that with?
Because I think it was.
It's different and it's a different voice on it.
I think we just kind of liked it because it had a kind of progressive edge to it in a strange kind of way, you know. And I think it really, you know, lyrically more than anything, I think it set the tone for the album. I think it's a very brave lyric for Nick to write because as an emotional touchstone, it really does drag in a lot of themes on the record. And also, I just when you you hear that track come on, and then you hear his voice come in, it just feels like you're just turning the page of a book. You know, it's amazing kind of thing. And I was just really enraptured with the idea of him just leading off one of our songs because I just had this feeling that my voice wasn't touching upon some of the subtleties in the lyrics on this record, and he did that perfectly. You know, I would be struggling to bring that manly tone to the verses like he did, and he just did it effortlessly. So there you go.
A couple of wonderful emerging female voices on the record as well, Kate LeBon and Lucy Rose.
Yeah, I mean, with both her songs, Sullen Welsh Heart, kind of the way I wrote it, I thought it could have been on one of those kind of early 70s Leonard Cohen records. And she used to, I think the lady was called Jennifer Warnes, that used to sing behind in the background. And I used to love the effect of Leonard Cohen's voice with that female voice in the background, where the female voice seemed to give everything just a bit of hope or a bit of oxygen. And that was my intention for like Lucy Rose's voice. I hoped that's what she would do for us. And again, she was playing in Cardiff on a Sunday, and she just came to the studio on a Sunday morning. And again, just nailed it in 2-3 takes. And it was straight away, you know, it worked for me in the sense of the lyric is kind of it's a self-examination of perhaps one's deepest fault lines. But she kind of brought a bit of hope to it, brought a bit of sense to the table. And so her voice did exactly what I wanted, but even more so, you know. So, and she was so gracious about it. She wouldn't take any money for it. But she walked away with one of our guitars. So she got paid with a beautiful guitar.
Yeah, I'll jump onto eBay and buy it off her.
She's using it every night apparently now. It's become her new number one.
Back in Scotland, back playing the Barrowlands at the end of the month.
Yeah, we are. I've lost count how many times we played the Barrowlands, and it's it never diminishes at how excited and scared you feel at the same time. Because I remember the first time I stepped on stage at the Barrowlands for the sound check for our first concert day, and I remember just staring up at the ceiling with all the stars in the ceiling. I remember seeing it from a video I had of Big Country playing the Barrowlands at kind of New Year's Eve kind of thing. So I'd watched that video so many times because I was a massive Stuart Adamson fan. And when I stood there for the sound check, and I just thought, it was one of those moments where I thought, I can't believe I'm standing in the same spot that Stuart Adamson stood and played, all those songs. So I've never forgotten that moment really, because I think it's one of those. I think if you're not a proper musician, if you're a proper music fan, you'll have just seen in the press so many of your favourite bands play the Barrowland. And when you see that they've played the Barrowlands more than once, you think, that's it, they've arrived. So when you actually get to play there for the first time, apart from my thing of, remembering Stuart Adamson on stage there and stuff, it's a massive moment for any kind of person who's a big music fan, definitely.
Well, we'll look forward to it. James, brilliant to see you as always.
Gotcha. Thank you very much, sir.
You have a guitar.
Yes.
We're going to get some tracks.
Gotcha. It's easy peasy.
In Demand. Uncut.